Story 1. So this is a story about my second big encounter with my crazy neighbor. Just some information. This happened on my 16th birthday, a few months after my I don't work here lady situation with the same neighbor. It was during July, a week before my 16th birthday. I wanted my birthday to be Black Panther themed. All my previous birthdays were Marvel heroes themed. I made my list of invitations. I invited some of my school friends, city friends, and relatives. And since I invited relatives, I was certain that there would be younger kids. So I asked my mom if she could find someone to dress up as Black Panther. She said okay. It wasn't easy finding someone, but luckily my old friend's dad was okay with being Black Panther. Fast forward to my birthday. It was a nice and amazing birthday. My friends and family enjoyed the party, so I was happy. My friend's dad was doing a nice job as Black Panther and was happy that he was making children smile. Everything was perfect, though I wouldn't be writing this if it was. The time came for the piñata to be obliterated. Everyone was supposed to be given a turn in trying to decapitate it. When it came for it to be my little cousin's turn, we, my parents and I, heard a mysterious yelling coming from the front yard. We were celebrating my birthday in the backyard, so we didn't hear the yelling the first time. We went to check what or where the sound was coming from, only to see Karen obviously mad about something. My dad asked her why she was here and why she was shouting. She responds with, "Why wasn't my daughter invited to the party?" Well, you see, my son is not very comfortable with being near you ever since that incident. So, it was just a small accident. So why wasn't my daughter invited? I told my dad it's okay because I knew she wouldn't leave until we allowed her and her daughter. I thought that things couldn't go wrong since she was happy that I allowed her and her daughter. That was until Karen saw that some of the people I invited were black. Karen threw a fit screaming, "Why would we invite some racial slur to this party?" I told her that we didn't have a problem with any race and that the party was a black superhero theme anyway. Karen then said I was a R-word and started insulting me for making it Black Panther themed. "Mommy, please stop. Black people are nice people," her daughter told her. Karen got mad hearing her daughter say this. "Look what you've done. You corrupted my daughter, you jerks. You have no right to call my son that, you witch," my mom screamed at her. I wasn't shocked because I kinda expected this to happen the moment I let her in the party. "You need to treat all people how they should be treated, not treat them like dirt," Mom kept going. "Fine. You want me to treat them how they should be treated, then I'll treat them that way." Karen then started walking towards my friend, who was too afraid to move as he didn't like being yelled at. Karen then picked up the piñata bat, then proceeded to swing it right at his stomach. My friend fell on his knees from the pain and started coughing and crying in pain. My parents then quickly called an ambulance for my friend, and they said they'd be here in 15 minutes. Karen then started walking over to Black Panther, my friend's dad. "And this is what I think of your black superhero." She tried to hit the friend's dad with the bat, but luckily he was able to catch the bat and take it out of her hands. He then proceeded to tackle Karen and plant her face to the grass. Also, did I mention that he was a police officer? He then asked some of the adults to hold Karen while he went to his bag and got his radio and some cuffs. I was actually surprised he brought his police stuff with him to the party, but didn't question it as it proved to be useful. He returned with cuffs and his radio and proceeded to cuff Karen and tell her, "Ma'am, you are under arrest for disturbing the peace, attempting to harm a police officer, child endangerment. She wanted to hit the other black kids, and assaulting a minority son. You will stay here as I have already called for a car to take you away." My parents luckily had the number of Karen's daughter's dad, so they called him and informed him of the events that took place. He agreed to pick her up and started apologizing the entire phone call till he arrived at our house. The ambulance arrived and took my friend to the hospital. Karen was once again brought to a nice comfy prison cell to stay in. And since this wasn't the first time Karen hurt a minor, she didn't spend a few weeks in prison, but a few months instead. She was also given a fine for my friend's hospital fees and that her husband wasn't allowed to help pay the fine. So in the end, my birthday was ruined and my friend got hurt. but at least Karen got to spend some more time in prison and a fine for the damage she caused my friend. Story 2. So me, 19, male, and my now ex-girlfriend, 18, female, have been together for more than a year. We were in the same class during middle school and high school now. A 2-year friendship eventually evolved into a relationship. You all know how it is. We were happily together, at least so I thought, since December 2019. I thought everything was great between us the whole time, although recently, about March, I noticed her becoming very distant and barely writing first, dry texting, etc. I asked her multiple times if everything is okay and gave her some space, but it continued for the next few months. I was naturally very upset as I've been through hell and back together with her when she was going through depression and a really hard time at the end of 2020. It suddenly felt like all this time was wasted and worth nothing. I, as a naive high schooler, truly believed that she was the one. It was serious after all. We matched perfectly together. We spent about 3 full months crying together at night when she was going through a rough time. We had similar plans for the future, similar interests, and it seemed we were meant for each other. My girlfriend, let's call her Caroline, was studying to become a lawyer, so she was mostly into humanities subjects. I, on the other hand, am studying biochemistry for medical school. I apologize if this is all confusing. Different. We live in Europe. She was required to attend at least one science subject to graduate, physics/biology/chemistry/psychology. She always hated these subjects and just took them because they were necessary to graduate. She ended up picking chemistry as I was a natural and tutored 9 and 10 graders chemistry in my free time, and I always helped her with assignments, etc. It started as helping her before exams and assignments so she could get a good pass grade, and after her rough time warped into me writing half of the assignments for her. In February, she started to do everything with me again though. We had online the whole time. Anyways, enough backstory. After noticing Caroline started to get distant, and she never properly answered my questions regarding her behavior, I wanted to see how far it would go. For 1 week, I didn't invite her, call her, text her first. In a total of 1 week, she called me 3 times. Twice to ask me about her assignment, and once telling me how she felt insecure and bad. I'm not a jerk. I helped her out with her school stuff and comforted her when she felt down. Me being the naive love is perfect lovebird I am, chalked it up to her feeling depressed again, but feeling embarrassed about it. I continued helping and comforting her for the next month until nothing changed and she never opened up. I was honestly doubting everything by then. Is it me? What am I doing wrong, etc. I tried everything I could. Eventually, I asked her friends if something happened, but they said she was the same as always towards them. I knew something was up, but I didn't know what it was yet. One day when she came over to my place, it was only the second time she did that in March. Usually she came at least twice a week. We were sitting in my room and talking while she was trying out Valorant. After she went to my kitchen to make herself something, I heard a notification from her phone. I'm usually not a snooper, but I had a quick look at her screen that lit up. I wouldn't be able to read the message or who it was anyway. It was a Discord notification. I was very surprised. I knew for a fact that she didn't have it a month ago. Plus, she only plays Minecraft once in a while. She never uses Discord or anything. So the next morning I did some snooping and sure enough, I found a whole other Instagram account of hers where she branded herself to be an aesthetic gamer girl. Not that there's anything wrong with that. She had never told me anything about this. I couldn't find any of her friends following her on that account either. Sure enough, she had her Discord username in her bio. Curious, and to be honest, a whole me decided it would be a good idea to create a throwaway account and try to text her to see what she was all about. Before you complain to me, I know I was in a hole here. After texting her on my new account, we talked for a bit until she became flirty. We played a few Bed Wars games together. Once again on a throwaway account I bought for $1. I kinda broke down and started questioning my sanity. I had been with her all this time and through so much stuff. I couldn't believe she would do this to me. After the sadness came from the anger, I wanted to know how much she took it. I found it hard to believe that she would just casually flirt with guys like this. After setting up my first recon mission plan, I found out more about her until I found out about her supposed boyfriend. At that point, I had a huge emotional breakdown, and I felt I've wasted so much time helping someone who would betray me like this. From her stories, I would later find out they have been dating for a whole month by now, about when her behavior started to change. At this point, I started hatching my revenge plan. I know I would not let her off the hook this easily. I spent 2 weeks pulling all-nighters making sure I had all my work done till the end of the year until graduation. I spend all my remaining time creating fake chemistry textbook pages so I could make my pro-revenge more believable. All of the information was wrong. I knew I had to give her a taste of her own medicine, betray her like she had me. For the remaining 2 months of the school year, I fed her all this fake information and made sure she got all of her assignments wrong. I knew she wouldn't be able to tell anyone she was copying off me, as our high school had a very strict rule for plagiarism. As much as 3 small cheating attempts on small exams could get you expelled. So after letting the pot stew for those 2 painful, awful months, I let the crap hit the fan. As our teacher had to handle an outrageous amount of classes, she always checked our assignments late, often by 2 or 3 months all at once. I knew I could use this fact to my advantage. After she submitted her final assignments that were worth a huge percentage of our final graduation grade, I told her I knew about her shenanigans had been still ongoing for 3 entire months by now. I told her how she hurt me and how it will come back to haunt her. I made sure of that. She mostly brushed me off and acted as if I were the villain, as I couldn't just leave her, and that she was only friends with that guy. Although I told her something was going to happen, I never told her what it would be. Trust me, she never saw it coming. 1 week later, the end-of-year results rolled around. When we received our final grades, I was over the moon as I passed with flying colors. On the other hand, her not so much, due to her final assignments and all quarter 4 work equaling to an F. She called me crying and asked for help. She told me she wouldn't be able to graduate if she wouldn't receive at least a passing grade for this year. She told me our teacher gave her a final chance after telling her how disappointed she was. Caroline has 2 more months at school with extra one-on-one online lessons with our Saint teacher. Honestly, props go out to her. To be honest, I felt really bad for her and her situation, knowing very well that if she didn't work hard in these 2 months, in a subject she hated, she would have to repeat the last year, without someone constantly helping her with her chemistry. That compassion quickly went away, and I told her I would help her, but only if she apologized and paid me my regular tutoring fees. Caroline went full-on ballistic after that and screamed at me how I could do this to her. I hung up, and she called me a few seconds after, apologizing and agreeing to pay me for my help. She now has 2 months of intense memorizing with her ex if she wants to graduate. Edit. Now she has to study for those 2 months, and when the regular end of the school year comes, she has to complete a series of exams. Think 4-8, covering the most important topics from this year. If she passes all of them, she will pass chemistry. Story 3. This happened yesterday when I was at the car wash. It's one of those places where you drive through for the wash and then park to clean and vacuum, with vacuum hoses on each side of every parking spot. Yesterday, it was pretty quiet when I arrived. There were only 4 cars in the lot, including my van, out of a total of 22 spots. Yes, I counted before I left. Like the other cars there, I picked a spot far from everyone else so I could have both sides of my van empty. I'm a man, but instead of stuffing everything in my pockets, I carry a small messenger bag. I had my bag sitting on the passenger seat of my van and had opened both of the front doors and both of the sliding doors for ventilation. This car wash provides loaner towels for drying and cleaning, with buckets for used towels. I had just grabbed a couple of towels when a guy pulled up right next to my van. It was annoying since there were so many other spots he could have chosen, but I decided to let it go. Then I realized that my bag was quite visible from both the entrance and the wash tunnel exit, which made me a bit uneasy. So I moved to the passenger side of my van to clean, dry, and vacuum that side. Afterward, I closed the sliding door, locked it, and did the same with the passenger front door. About 30 seconds after I returned to the driver's side to work on that side, I heard someone pulling on my door handles. I looked up immediately, and it was, unsurprisingly, the same guy who had parked next to me. So I called out to him. Yeah, I already locked the doors. He got so furious that I could see his face turn red, and he yelled back, "Forget you, jerk." He then punched my van, which seemed to hurt his hand more than it did my door, jumped back into his car, and sped out of the parking lot as fast as his old beater could go. I couldn't help but laugh and gave him a wave as he drove away. When I checked the other side of my van, I couldn't even tell where he had hit it. There was no mark or dent at all. So I finished cleaning up and headed to the store, chuckling to myself. I'm really glad I locked my doors. Story 4. Characters Entitled Kid, Entitled Mother, Me, and Neighborhood Kid 1 and Neighborhood Kid 2. Note: the neighbors are generally nice people. The entitled kid was just older than them and used that to assume some authority. The story begins. One summer day last year, I had just turned 14, and I was playing basketball with two kids from my neighborhood in their driveway. Their family is pretty well off, so they have a fully paved driveway big enough to work as a decent-sized basketball court. It was just the three of us for about half an hour, when along came the entitled kid from down the street. This kid is your typical spoiled brat who made the select soccer team 3 years ago and still acts like he's in charge of everyone. We let him join the game, and things go smoothly for a bit. I'm a little on the bigger side, but I'm strong and play well as a center, backing down defenders and dominating close to the basket. The entitled kid is guarding me, and he's clearly frustrated because he's shorter and not as strong, so he's struggling to keep up. Then the incident happens. I grab a loose ball and start running back toward the basket. The entitled kid gets in front of me and blocks my drive, so I start backing him down again. He must have been really irritated by not being able to stop me because he suddenly comes up with a nasty plan. As I was wearing a hoodie, he grabbed the hood from behind and pulled as hard as he could. I wasn't expecting it, and suddenly I couldn't breathe. I started to panic. No matter how much I struggled, I couldn't shake him off. It felt like he held on to me for 45 seconds, and while that may not sound long, in that moment of panic, it felt like an eternity. Eventually, his grip loosened, and I finally managed to shake him off. Furious, I threw a punch, hitting him in the nose. It wasn't my hardest punch, but it was enough to make a point. He fell down, clutching his nose and wailing dramatically, while I was on my knees, trying to catch my breath. He continued to cry and scream, rolling on the ground like a melodramatic actor, and that's when his mom came running over. I knew right then that I was in trouble. Apparently, his mom had come outside at some point in the commotion. She's the classic, "I need to speak to the manager" type, an upper-middle-class mom who probably volunteers as the head of the Parent-Teacher Association every year and frequents a coffee shop several times a day. The entitled kid is very much her son. The confrontation begins. Entitled mother: "Oh my goodness, are you okay? What did you do to him?" Me: "He almost choked me, so I hit him." Entitled mother: "Why would you do that? You're so much bigger than him." Me: "But he was choking me." Entitled mother: "Come on, you've got to be more mature than this." Me: "What did you expect me to do? Apologize to him for him choking me?" This back and forth went on for a while, until the two neighborhood kids stepped in to defend me. Neighborhood Kid 1: "He didn't really do anything wrong." Neighborhood Kid 2: "Yeah, he didn't even hit him that hard." Entitled mother: "He shouldn't be hitting people in the first place, especially not my son." Yes, she actually said, "especially not my son." Neighborhood Kid 2: "But it was kind of fair, he..." Entitled mother: "Why are you two defending him? You should probably go inside. You don't know what you're talking about." The neighborhood kids kept trying to help, but she wouldn't listen. This argument dragged on for another 5 minutes before the entitled kid finally got up and limped back to his house. Frustrated, I decided to head home too. The next day. The following day, I went back to my friend's house to play basketball again. But the entitled kid was already there. Neither of his parents' cars were around, so I assumed he was staying with the neighbors until his parents got back. Not wanting any more drama, I just turned around and went home. A couple of hours later, the entitled kid came to my house with his mom standing at our gate. Entitled kid, hi? I just came to say sorry for choking you yesterday. I won't do it again. Me, okay. Thanks, and I'm sorry for punching you. At that point, my mom came over to see who I was talking to and asked what was going on. The entitled mother then chimed in. Entitled mother, we're here for your forgiveness gift. Me, my what? Entitled mother, your forgiveness gift. In our family, it's a tradition that whoever apologizes last has to give the other person something to make up for it. My mom, excuse me, what's going on? I explained the whole incident, and the more I told my mom, the more disgusted she looked. The entitled kid tried to correct my story by saying things like, he punched me twice in the face and kicked me while I was crying on the ground. But my mom has an excellent sense for lies, and I could tell from her expression that she wasn't buying his version. My mom turned to the entitled kid and his mother. My mom, I'm sorry, but we don't do forgiveness gifts in this family. Entitled mother, well, we do. Angel, pick something out. The entitled kid looked around and spotted my gaming console, pointing right at it. Entitled kid, Mom, I want that. Remember, this kid is only about a year younger than me. He's definitely too old for this kind of behavior, in my opinion. Entitled mother stepped forward, looked at my console, and said, Great, we'll take that as our gift. Steam practically came out of my mom's ears as she slammed the door in their faces and locked it. They started pounding on the door, so loud it sounded like they were trying to break it down. We ignored them, but they kept pounding for at least 5 more minutes before finally giving up and leaving. To this day, if I see the entitled kid around the neighborhood, I avoid his family as much as possible. That's my story. I know it's long and might not be as intense as some others here, but thank you for reading if you got this far. Story 5. I was a squad leader, in charge of 9 humanoids at the time. We had semi-recently returned from a deployment from arguably the worst neighborhood in Baghdad, Iraq. I had received Aaron a couple months prior to the deployment. He performed superbly during airborne operations, field training exercises, and live fire exercises. The kid was great, away or confined from civilization. However, Aaron was nothing but trouble when he was free to his own devices. We had a surprise urinalysis during one of our training exercises, and guess who pissed hot? Aaron. He was a stellar soldier though, and the entire organization fought to keep him due to the upcoming deployment. Maybe we could change him? Iraq. The deployment was 15 months long, longer than any other deployment I had been on before. There was a 2-week rest and recuperation leave, vacation, for each soldier during the deployment due to the length. We decided who and when would go on vacation early in the deployment. We had planned for Aaron to go towards the later half of the deployment in hopes of him maturing as a soldier and human. 10 months later. It was time. Aaron seemed like he had turned the corner and started to mature. He was no longer a break in case of war only soldier. His team leader, direct supervisor, myself, and the platoon sergeant, in charge of 42 humanoids, had sat Aaron down and counseled him on our expectations. You see, Aaron had compiled a stack of cash due to the deployment. He was making more than $3,000 a month, and also re-enlisted and received a $20,000 tax-free, due to deployment, bonus. The kid was sitting on $50,000. We knew it, and boy did he know it. Some background about Aaron. He was raised by his mother, and they were literally dirt floor poor. Running water was not a thing at his house. He grew up in the backwoods of North Carolina and Tennessee. His father was only sporadically in the picture. The army was the only thing going for him. Now this kid had money, lots of it, and we were about to set him free into the world for 2 weeks. The kid was let off the leash for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Much to our surprise, he wasn't arrested, or at least he wasn't caught breaking any laws. However, he had some stories to tell when he returned. Aaron reconnected with his father. Aaron met the love of his life. Aaron bought his dad a truck. Aaron bought himself a truck. Aaron bought himself a four-wheeler. Aaron bought his dad a gun. Aaron bought himself a gun. Aaron is freaking broke again. No worries though. We semi-expected this to happen. At least the kid was on the leash again. Maybe we can work the crazy out of this kid over the next 5 months. Redeployment. We return home and return to our normal army lives. Months go by and we have no issues with Aaron. Then we have another urinalysis. There is no reason to expect anything, and Aaron is acting normal. We casually joke around about the last urinalysis, and he exclaims that he is a changed man. Good. The next day at work, Aaron is late. At least we think he is late. We ask his friends, but nobody knows where he is at. Now Aaron is unaccounted for with a failure to report. We continue to ask his closest friends if there is anything we should know. Nick, his closest friend, informs us that he just received a text in which Aaron stated, "Screw this, I'm not coming back." Great, now this jerk is absent without leave. This is just a giant freaking hassle now. There are certain things we have to do in this situation, such as clear his room. The first sergeant, big boss, and the entire platoon leadership go to Aaron's room to inventory the remaining possessions, put them in storage, and prepare the room for future soldiers. This is typically a mundane process. Not Aaron's room though. This kid was an odd cat. Evidently he only packed the essentials during his hurry to quit the army. This list of things found in his room went something like this: Xbox X1, PlayStation X1, camera X1, leather stuff, more than anyone should ever own, and so much alcohol. This list goes on and on with numerous things findings didn't expect. Funny side story. Brandon, the squad leader, was scrolling through the camera. He had a grin on his face. "Hey Ed, dare you to take a pull from the Jack Daniels bottle." Brandon challenges Ed. He's a rules guy. "No, we are working." "Coward, just take a swig. I'll pay you $20 bucks." "No, we are on duty." They go back and eventually First Sergeant, the big boss, states, "I don't care if you drink it or not. Stop being a jerk." What the heck ever. Ed then takes a giant swig of Jack. Now Ward is laughing uncontrollably on the floor. Tears are streaming down his face, and he cannot even pause to speak because he is laughing so hard. Ward calms down, then says, "Look." What were we greeted with? A picture of a Jack Daniels bottle where Aaron is peeing in it. There is no way in hell that sphincter will ever be watertight again. We all had a good laugh minus Ed. Months pass. We are now doing expert infantry badge testing, large hands-on testing for some shiny metal, and I have my crew of 3 soldiers. We get on the topic of Aaron during breaks and in between testing candidates. Not only did Aaron hassle us with his departure from the army, but he sent emails to the leadership embellishing war stories and dead-out lying about events. The kid wasn't even in the army anymore, but he was still making our lives difficult. I wanted revenge. We wanted revenge. Out of nowhere, Nick, soldier, informs us that Aaron still talks to him via text. What? That's freaking great. Where is he? What is he doing? Have you seen him? We need to learn more. We coach Nick into finding out where he is. Start slow. Don't make it too overt. It took 3 weeks of coaching to finally get them to link up together. They met in a random town in North Carolina. Aaron didn't want Nick to know where he lived yet. Fine by us. We continue to orchestrate meetings in neutral locations, until Nick is trusted enough to spend the weekend at Aaron's place, in Charlotte, North Carolina. Great, we have an address now. Then Nick drops a bomb on us. Aaron lives with his dad, and he is balls deep in the family business. You see, he reconnected with his father because his father had just been paroled. His father became a self-made man after that. Aaron and his father were doing well for themselves financially. The family business venture? Yeah, it was meth. Nick stated that he never wanted to go back to Aaron's house again. He lived on a cul-de-sac in a not-so-good part of town. One would assume that neighbors would not be too keen on having a meth house in the neighborhood, but the neighbors were mostly customers, so it worked out. The house was full of meth heads, needles, junkie chaos. What did we do? What any good citizen would do. I called the Charlotte Police Department and informed them, in great detail, of our little situation. I wanted Aaron to pay for his sins, the lies he told and the hassle he put the organization through, especially after we fought for him. The plan. We didn't want Nick at the house. Didn't want him getting mixed up or worse during the raid. Our idea was to have Nick meet Aaron at Dave & Buster's Restaurant Arcade. The Charlotte Police Department would detain him at Dave & Buster's and eventually turn him over to us, the Army. The plan worked incredibly, and the police were happy to oblige. They went the whole 9 yards to help out. We, Army peeps and plainclothes cops, parked outside Dave & Buster's and allowed Aaron to enjoy his last meal as a free man. While we sat and exchanged war stories, and Aaron ate, the narcotics unit was raiding Aaron's house. They were not too happy about the family business. Felons are not supposed to cook meth or have firearms. His father was cuffed and stuffed. We were not done yet. We wanted to twist the knife. Aaron was greeted by 4 plainclothes cops after paying the bill. The look on his face was priceless. It became more priceless when he saw his old workmates and knew we set him up. The icing on the cake. The narcotics unit brought his father to Dave & Buster's so they could ride in the same car. The patrol car that would take them both to jail. I hope he enjoyed bonding with his father. The Charlotte police charged Aaron and his father with numerous felony charges. We were finally able to get him off our books with a court-martial and dishonorable discharge. They both went to jail. Story 6. Recently, I shared this story in another discussion, and someone suggested it might fit well here. Please feel free to remove it if it doesn't meet the guidelines. I was raised in a devout Roman Catholic family, and my siblings and I were sent to Catholic-run schools from kindergarten through high school. To understand this story, it's helpful to know a bit about Catholic religious practices. I'll keep it brief. Catholics observe a sacrament called Holy Confession, where they confess their sins to a priest. If a person truly repents, the priest, acting in God's name, can grant forgiveness. Most churches have confessionals specifically for this purpose. While some modern ones are small rooms with chairs, the traditional confessional is a small, closet-like space. The priest sits in an adjacent section, separated by a privacy screen. Usually, confessions happen after the morning service, with one or more priests available for people to enter one by one, confess, and receive absolution. Now, the confidentiality of the confessional is absolutely sacred within the church, much like the privilege between a lawyer and their client. A priest is never supposed to disclose anything learned during a confession or act on that information. Priests have even been executed in history for refusing to testify in court about something heard in confession. If a priest breaks this confidentiality, he can be defrocked, removed from the priesthood, and could potentially face excommunication, expulsion from the church, and rejection by devout Catholics. It's a huge deal. So strict is the rule that even if a priest later learns the same information through normal means, they are not allowed to act on it, to avoid giving the impression that they broke the confessional bond. This last part is important. When I was in my sophomore year, my Catholic high school administration was taken over by a religious order called the Salesians, known for their dedication to educating young people. Our new principal was a Salesian priest who started holding daily Mass in our campus chapel every morning before classes and strongly encouraged us to attend. Despite his efforts, it didn't really catch on. Only one or two devout teachers and perhaps a particularly religious student would show up. Then, one Monday morning, right after homeroom, we heard a familiar announcement over the PAW system. Will the following students report to the principal's office immediately? This usually happened when students were in trouble for something they did over the weekend. We were in a private school, so students could be disciplined for things that happened outside school grounds. Someone would throw a big party, the parents would find out, call the school, and everyone involved would face consequences. That's when I had an idea. The following Monday, I made sure to be at the morning mass bright and early. I was at the front of the line to enter the confessional afterward. When I sat down with Father Jim, our principal, I confessed every single detail of the trouble my friends and I had gotten into over the weekend. I told him where we went, who did what, and everything in between. The first time, I think he was a bit surprised. He gave me a few acts of penance to complete, granted absolution, and sent me on my way. I think at first, he was genuinely pleased with himself, thinking, I'm really reaching these kids. But by the middle of the semester, I'm pretty sure he caught on to my strategy. Every now and then, he'd make a sly comment or crack a smile, but he couldn't do anything about it. By confessing everything we'd done over the weekend first thing Monday, I was putting all that information under the confidentiality of the confessional. Anything I told him in confession, he couldn't act on without risking serious consequences within the church. So, if he got to his office and found a message from a friend's parent saying she'd caught us up to no good, he could acknowledge her information, but he couldn't use it to punish us, because I had already told him everything in confession 20 minutes earlier. This tradition lasted all the way through senior year. It worked out quite well for me and my friends. As time went on, other students must have caught on to what I was doing, because by the time I graduated, Monday morning Mass had become well attended, and Father Jim even had to start earlier to fit in all the confessions before classes began. I sometimes wonder if I or Father Jim was really responsible for this creative compliance. Were we outsmarting him by attending confession for our own selfish reasons, or was he outsmarting us by finding a way to get dozens of high school students to regularly attend Mass and confession? In the end, it seemed like a win-win situation for both sides.